This is The Dig on the Huskers Radio Network podcast. Powered by Emeritus. Featuring Nebraska Volleyball Director of Operations, Lindsay Peterson. Here's your host, Jessica Coody.
Welcome back into another episode of The Dig, powered by Emeritus. And welcome back, Lindsay Peterson. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. It's been a while.
Yeah. What a weekend. At Purdue, you had Washington at home with the stripe out, which looked really cool on TV. And then at Purdue, a big win, but another successful weekend for the Huskers.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a different look for us this weekend, being at home on Friday and then a road match on Sunday. So not in our routine at all because of how we had that travel set up. But the players stayed focused. And, I mean, I think it's a little deceiving because the scores maybe didn't reflect how tough the matches were. Washington is a very physical and scrappy team, and they don't make a lot of errors. So it really made us work for the points that we had to get, and we had to stay focused and disciplined over a long period of time. And so that was good for us to see our players be forced to do that and be able to still be successful and still execute our game plan while doing that. And then obviously at Purdue, we always know that facility is tough to play in, and they always put up a good fight, and they're a great team. They've had a great season so far, and we just at times were really clicking on all cylinders. And Harper had a huge match for us, and I think just it was really tough for Purdue to continue to maintain playing at that high level for that long a period. And you saw us finally about halfway through the second set, tides turn, and from there we kind of took it, but. Both matches were good tests for us, and it was great to see having that type of schedule, how our players were able to respond.
The last few seasons that we've had this podcast, I think all of you guys, when you've rotated in, have talked about the atmosphere at Purdue. And you could see it. They're right on top of you. The student sections are going like that. And then Purdue Pete, who's arguably the ugliest mascot in all of college sports, is right there too. I would be nervous with him right there, doing his fingers.
Yeah, we actually lucked out because they were on fall break. So normally where we started, that whole end zone side or the end court side would be completely packed with students. And so we've had some very rough matches there as far as crowd involvement. And this Sunday wasn't as bad because of fall break. I heard a lot of people say, I don't understand why they didn't play this game at Mackey, but I think that was one of the reasons why we played in that smaller venue, was because so many of their students were gone and they wouldn't be able to create the atmosphere they would like in that big arena. And it might be predominantly Nebraska fans. So I think they were trying to keep it somewhat of a home court advantage playing in the smaller gym. But it is a very tight gym and the fans are right on you. It changes perception as far as serving and understanding how the ball moves when you're in a smaller gym like that, and compared to a bigger arena. And so it is a place that we've had some wars there before. So it always, when you get through that road trip, you kind of take a deep breath because it's always good to come away with a win. You
agree, though, Purdue Pete's one of the more unfortunate looking mascots.
Yeah, but it's crazy because you continue to get drawn to what he's doing, which is weird. You would see him and I just shake my head because it's like he catches your attention. So
listen, it's not just us. He's on a lot of people have done lists, and he's on there with there's a standard 10 type mascots in college sports, and he's on consistently one of those.
I understand.
But you mentioned Harper Murray, and she's a Big Ten Player of the Week, first time in her career. Just unbelievable. No errors. How hard is that? What is that like when she's in the zone, right?
Absolutely. She was definitely in a flow state as far as attacking goes. I mean, especially in the role that we expect her to carry, being a 6 rotation player, having to carry the weight, serving and passing. And then also she had several kills out of the back row, hit a very high percentage, which back row attacking, we've worked on and gotten better at, but I feel like you put her in situations where she's out of system more, or they know the ball's going to her, so her chance of getting blocked or making an error is greater. So she really did a great job managing what she had and mixing up her shots and just being really aggressive out of the back row especially. But, for an outside with that type of role that she plays for our team, that was an incredible match.
And then on Friday night, she had 12 kills with just one error. So 2 huge matches for her. What goes into, I know just, being year 3 and she's played a lot of volleyball, but when you are starting to play at that level, what has changed? What has really allowed her to take another step? She's been so good for so long, but even, where you are that efficient offensively.
Yeah, well, I think if you'd ask her, she'd probably say it feels like the game has slowed down for her because she sees it so much better. She can see the block. She understands, reads, what the defense is giving her better. As you come into transition into college, your focus is, speed and making sure feet to the ball. And you have all these things you're thinking about and sometimes get ahead and already worried about what's coming back at you. And I think she's just in a spot right now, and her performance is showing it, that it's just slow and easy for her. Mm-hmm. And when the game slows down, that allows you as a player to be very successful because it allows you to manage each situation. And she's a very technically sound player as well. So she can see, if Purdue was trying to take away her strength, she was able to go to something else. And a lot of times, players struggle having to try to change what they're good at and try to beat you in another way or try to be successful in another way. They can't withstand that change for a long period of time. And Harper's able to, they try to shut down one thing, she goes to the next. She sees it if they change their blocking scheme or defensive scheme and goes to another. And then I also think she and Bergen have just become very much on the same page as far as knowing where she's at, especially out of the back row. She's doing a great job being available, being vocal. Bergen's able to feel her coming out of the back row, and they just have a great connection right now. And once you get that connection with your setter, it also makes your job easier as an outside hitter. So, she has a lot of experience, but I also think she's studied the game and has worked hard on a lot of things to enable herself to have the game slow down and to be able to be that successful.
Great stuff. I think we see teams trying to do things differently than maybe what they've done to try to get Nebraska off their game. What are you guys seeing in terms of just in match, the players adjusting to what they're seeing that might be different than what they've prepared for on film?
Yeah, I mean, just an example would be Sunday's match. Their outside hitters were primarily cross-court, seam cross-court hitters, and our block started taking that away, and so initially took that away, forcing them to hit line. They had some success hitting line early, but then they couldn't continue at that level, and our block was able to adjust on that too, and so started getting touches and then forced them back where our defense was ready for a cross-court attack. So I think it's, Jalen does a great job on the sideline as far as communicating with the blockers and adjustments and not letting the players chase the previous play. And that's, easier said than done. A lot of times if you get beat down the line, then that's in your head as you go to block again and you adjust and try to take the line, which opens up their strong shot again. And staying true to what we've trained and what we're expecting them to do and stick with that and being patient and not, if we need to adjust, we'll adjust, but don't adjust after just one change. And our players have done a great job executing that. And then if there needs to be a change in the game plan and we adjust, they're able to make that. But a lot of that goes into the preparation ahead of time, but also how we train every day, like understanding we can still be in the same spot. Our body can still be in the same spot. And we can make adjustments with our hands that will help deflect some of those shots if they start going away from their strength.
Seems like a really high-level IQ team. It's one thing to say, Harper's played a lot of volleyball, but it just seems like they understand things, even the freshmen. From top to bottom, it just seems like a team that even, yes, they're very talented physically, but it seems like they understand the game very well.
Yeah, I would definitely say that's the case. I mean, we do have the luxury of having, 4 players out there who've played. This is their 3rd year on the court. Taylor's very experienced, but it is a high level IQ, and I think the adjustment, the time period of coming from high school to college, and volleyball, but when you're adjusting to the speed and the physicality and all the things that you don't have to, it comes easy in club and high school, but it's a whole different level once you come to college, especially coming to a place that, is in the top 5, you tend to think, oh boy, this is going to be hard for them. But a lot of times their volleyball IQ kicks in and it helps make that transition easier. And we do a lot of that, though, too, in our video studies, like bringing them in, watching film, whether watching of themselves, watching of other great players, so they understand and can see. So they may not necessarily see it in an opponent that we play, but they've seen it on video and they can understand how to then translate that to the court and how they play or how they react to situations. And I mean, they knew Purdue was notorious for serving short as well. And so our players were on that. They knew how to watch the hand of the server to try to pick that up early, to communicate early for the serve so it wasn't everyone caught off guard and the ball's coming short. And that's something that you learn as you're serving and you try to serve short and, or you drive the ball, you learn that. So then it's easy for you after you've seen it on video too, to then watch for those and translate that into the game.
Fascinating. You had said something earlier too that the two matches, and I think again from maybe the outside looking in, it's like, oh, they're sweeping teams. They haven't lost a set in Big Ten play, but you had talked about they were challenged in those matches. What are some of those challenges that they're being I guess that they're facing that is allowing them to grow, even though it might look from the outside that, hey, this looks pretty easy for this team?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Washington, it was a lot of they kept the ball in play. They forced you to score points. They didn't give you points. And sometimes when you feel like you're beating teams easily, you just think you're going to get easy points from teams and rely on that as a way and to win your sets or matches. And that's not what Washington was about. And Washington forces you to play good defense. Like they are good in placing the ball, so it makes you work harder in transition. And so we really had to work on that, is being able to cover the tip and then make sure every hitter was up and it wasn't taking players out, or making sure if somebody was taken out by a tip, we had a back row option or whatever it was. So it forced us to try to elevate our game, knowing how they play their game. And so it just worked that we were able to do that and play at a fairly high level doing it. But that's obviously not the case every time. That's you have to prepare understanding that teams are going to do stuff to try to throw you off. And then I think, in Purdue is the serving, the type of serve they did. They are notorious for being a great ball handling, first contact team, passing team. So knowing that our players had to take ownership going to the service line and understanding I have to be a great server today. I have to force them to be out of system to make it easier on our defense, because when they're an in-system team, they have weapons and makes it harder on our defense. And so knowing that you're facing a great passing team, you have to take ownership from the service line. So those little areas continue to make our team better. Maybe the score doesn't reflect it, or it's not a 5-set match, but it forces us to be uncomfortable in some situations or force us to get better at things that maybe we don't do every match.
How do you guys go about figuring out who's going to serve in any given match and even, I guess, in any given set?
Well, I mean, we have our set rotations, but we also see how they start serving. Virginia has a really great serve, but right now she's working on her consistency. So you the coaches decide like how many do we want to go letting her serve. It also decision may be if you sub her out and have a DS come in and serve. I mean, a DS is subbing into play back row for her. If we find that they're trying to attack her on defense, and maybe we look at subbing her out and having a DS serve. So if they're attacking that area on defense, it's into a defensive specialist instead of into a 6'5", lefty. So some of those decisions come in. Same with Andy. Andy has really come along with her serve. She has a great serve. But if you start to err, we look at bringing in another option and as well as defense too. I mean, we tell our setters when a middle's serving, take advantage of that. So you understand if there's a middle back there playing defense, they're not training a ton on backcourt defense. Their focus is offense, block, transition, all that. So they're not spending a lot of time really developing their backcourt defensive game. So we expect other teams to think the same thing. And so if they haven't taken advantage, and Andy and Virginia know that, to be prepared to play defense, but you're also giving a little bit up by keeping a middle or somebody in instead of bringing in somebody that's a DS and specializes in that.
How has Andy come along in that then? If you guys concentrate on that, I'm sure. So how has she improved in that area?
She's continued to becoming a little more comfortable. There's times that she panics out there, I think, but we all laugh about it because, I mean, it's just a part of the game. If you think of expecting somebody that's a back row player to go up and try to, move laterally and block and cover a middle and then be able to close on an outside, they would feel like their head is spinning a little bit. And I think that's a similar situation for these, Andy and Virginia, is that they don't spend a majority of their practice back there, but we do work on it because it could be a key point in the match. And we expect the opposing team to attack them, and we don't want to if they have such a great serve, we don't want to let the fact that a team is going to attack them on defense take them out and not serve, because we feel like that's a greater asset for us. So, they're both very open. They want to get better. They both want to be all-around volleyball players, and they, if you look at what is in the future as far as professional stuff, there's not as many subs, and so a lot of times you have to be able to do that. So those are just things that we train here to help make them the best volleyball player in the future and down the road.
Absolutely. You wear a lot of different hats, and one of the big tasks that you are, tasked with every single year is building the schedule. We've talked to you about it a little bit, but how has it changed from when you first started kind of figuring out what the schedule is going to look like to where it is now? Because it seems like so many people want a piece of Nebraska and what comes along with having the Huskers play in their building and their venue and their tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say 5 years ago, it was more trying to get teams to come in, paying teams to come in to play us at home. So we had home matches because we knew we'd sell out. And you have some teams that want to come play, whether they have Nebraska athletes on their team or they just want their team to experience that atmosphere. That was how we would look at scheduling. Like, we'd have other teams reach out to us, but then we usually had the final say based off of, a lot of times we're looking at RPI because we have to build strength of schedule to help us in December. And a lot of teams are looking at the same thing. So a lot of times they may come in and say, well, we can't afford to come play at your tournament and lose 3 games because you have 3 top 10 teams there. But we'd be willing to come play you guys knowing we're probably going to lose, but we also want to play a couple other teams, maybe a mid-major or somebody else. There'll be a great match, has a great shot of winning their conference. Their RPI is going to be pretty high. They're going to help us come December as well. So scheduling is really, it's really about that puzzle, putting those pieces together, trying to anticipate what this team's going to look like based off of last year. Are they going to be a great RPI team? And you have to also take into account what your conference is like. So last year, the Big Ten was, significantly higher RPI conference than it is right now currently. So we knew we were playing great RPI teams in our conference, where some conferences, they may have no other teams rated in their conference, and it actually hurts them when they go to conference play because of playing those teams. So we look at that. That's how we would look and schedule. We still look at it that way, but now we're getting third-party, venues reaching out, or third-party organizations reaching out, wanting us to come host it, put a tournament on TV, play in Vegas, play in some football stadium, play, in a big basketball arena, whatever it may be, because they want to capitalize on the growing of, popularity of volleyball right now. Getting also the Husker fans to fill the venue, but also trying to make it an experience. It's not so much about, hey, you're coming to play this match. It's starting to turn more into like what you see in basketball over Thanksgiving. Those kind of specialized tournaments like that is what people are looking at now. But now our tough, we have to come back and manage, well, is it going to be worth it for us to travel somewhere else, make somebody else money? What do we need to get as a guarantee in order to make it worth us to not hold a match at home where we know we could sell out and all that? And so those are now starting to become the bigger pieces that we're looking at that we didn't really have to shuffle through a couple years ago. And that just speaks volumes to where volleyball is right now and the popularity of it, and how media is starting to jump on and TV, and everybody wants to get on, this wild train right now and get a little piece of the pie. And it just so happens that, they know the piece they could get from us would be pretty large based off of where our team is and our following.
So you might have a good perspective of this too, because I know that at some point, with TV, you didn't know, well, if they sweep, how are we going to fill the rest of the window? You do some broadcasting too. How has that changed in the perspective of these networks to want to keep putting them on, not knowing exactly what the time is going to look like, the time frame?
Yeah, that's always the challenge. And so obviously we always say it's every network's dream if the match goes 4, because it's the perfect amount of time and it fills the windows. But they have to become a little more creative if it is go quick. I mean, we've seen so far in a few of our matches that have gone fairly quick to keep programming on. We've had 3 people interviewed after the match, 2 players and a coach. And there's there's more questions, and then there's more breaks or whatever to try to fill that time. So that is the challenge. And some of these, newer venues or third-party companies coming in and wanting to host these matches don't understand that side of the game. They think that they can just put in a window because it'll fall perfectly in that. But a 3-set match could be 90 minutes, a 5-set match could be 3 hours. You just don't know. It depends on the length of rallies. And, it's so unpredictable. But there is kind of this magic number, and you think, all right, you have about a 2-hour slot and that should work. And you'll see sometimes it does, run over where you'll have to watch another game. It'll be on Big Ten Plus until, it gets over on Big Ten or whatever it may be. But I think, the companies and networks would much rather see that time filled that way as opposed to trying to fill it with extra things.
It seems like they've gotten more okay with being able to do that tap dance a little bit because it's worth it with the numbers of viewership. And so it's worth it to put in the extra work to know we might have to adjust on the fly, but it's worth the product that we're seeing on TV and the numbers that are coming in with it.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I mean, the viewership has grown exponentially, and it's crazy to see how it continues to grow. And I just see every road trip we go on, the number of fans, and they're waiting out by our bus, and the number of people asking to meet and greet, and just alone our people following Nebraska volleyball, but then the sport in general. And so the networks, they want to, continue to put that out there because the demand is there. And then they'll continue to be more creative, and you'll see, we start to get more requests of, well, can we do maybe a side story just in case we can fill this? So, or they have stuff on the side that they could fill in if they need. But I would say the majority of the time, they're not needing to fill. They've kind of figured out that sweet spot, and volleyball as a whole is pretty balanced. I mean, the parity of it is, with the exception of maybe, your top 5 teams, it is a balanced, and you're not seeing teams just blow out other teams. Right. And so that's and it's such a momentum sport too. You may blow out a team in the first set, and then that team can come back and lose the next one, and that's not something you necessarily see in other sports.
Yeah, you can go up 20 and then the game's over in other sports, but
yeah,
you win by 20 in set 1. Hey, just get ready for set 2.
Right,
Could be completely different.
Match isn't over. So
how about you talk about the fans everywhere? How about the Grannies Be Rowdy at Purdue? They were all over the broadcast. That was cool. That was fun.
They were fun. They were excited to be there, and Danny took a picture with him, I know. And but I love to see that because it just shows that our team and our sport is reaching across all ages, and it's really attracting a lot of people to it. And to see that they have that youthfulness and passion about it was fun. And so I wasn't surprised that they got on TV a few times.
Okay, so we talked about it's kind of like a big puzzle piece. Do you like puzzles, like actual puzzles?
I'm not one to sit down and do it. It's just don't have the time, and 2, if I lose my patience pretty quickly. So
you'll choose the scheduling puzzles.
This is the scheduling puzzle a little easier. I usually then pull Jalen in and use pass it on to him and help him put a piece together, and then I'll try to piece around that. So it does take all of us really in that, just because Jalen has his network of coaches, and so does Danny. And obviously, we also have to work with administration to understand what we're looking for as far as a budget, how that goes. And then you have an idea of who you want as teams. And then the transfer portal hits. And a team that may look like they're going to have an incredible year might lose their coach, or their coach takes another job, and 3 of their top players leave too. And then all of a sudden, who you thought you wanted to bring in didn't work. So we start the process now. I try not to do any contracts until we get into the second semester and we have a better feel of what actually the team is going to look like. But we do start putting that bug out there and in their ear to think about, hey, what do you want to do in 26? Or you also know their recruiting classes coming in, and that helps too, knowing that what we have coming in and where they're from, do we want to get to Texas because we have Texas kids coming in, and that also fits into the puzzle as well.
Okay, so listen, we just went to Maryland with football. You guys were at Rutgers. There are a ton of Husker fans on the East Coast. Madison Square Garden, it's been, we've talked about it a little bit. Is that a potential venue down the road at some point?
Well, according to Jalen, it is. He's been preaching Madison Square Garden for a couple years and trying to tell the Big Ten and Rutgers that they should host a match there. And I wouldn't say it's out of the question. I mean, honestly, when you think of what the sport of volleyball is doing and how it's growing, but also these networks and companies that have ideas of making it a great experience, I would definitely see that as something that could take place in the future.
Oh, well, I think the East Coast Huskers would be, they'd make sure it was worth
I'm
the
sure
while.
they would start lobbying if it was an option.
All right, so this weekend coming up at Michigan State, then at Michigan. Michigan, you just saw what seemed like couple days ago, but they were opened up the Big Ten play. But Friday, Sunday there, both on the road. Tell us about this weekend, what these matchups look like, what the Huskers need to do coming up this weekend.
Well, I mean, Michigan State just had a big win over Indiana, and so we are, going to spend today prepping for them and getting ready for that matchup and understanding, see what they did to shut down Indiana, because Indiana has been a very hot team lately, and they have a physical right side, and there's some characteristics of Indiana's play that mirror ours. So studying that and understanding how we can learn from that match. But they have a new coach in Kristen Kelsey, and she'd been at Minnesota, so she's very familiar with our team and our players, and I know she'll have her team well prepared. And they have a different team than what they had last year, but they've always been a team that has been scrappy, and we play in their big basketball arena, so it'll be another probably sold-out venue, and it'll be a good challenge on the road. And then, of course, going to Michigan again. Michigan was one of those matches where I don't really feel like the score reflected Michigan's talent and level. They're a good team, and they're a team that can be very scary when they get hot. They run a fast offense, so if you can't get their offense shook a little bit or out of rhythm, they can get on a hot streak, and it's tough to get that momentum back. So that'll be another match that in a big arena, in their basketball arena, and I'm sure they're very much looking forward to having another shot at us and learning from the last time we played them, and we have to be ready to adjust from what they did last time. And but it'll be a quick turnaround. Like, our focus first has to be Michigan State, and then we'll see what we can get fixed and ready to go for Michigan on Sunday.
Great stuff as always. Best of luck, and appreciate you chatting with us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Lindsay Peterson once again with us here on The Dig. Emeritus is proud to power The Dig and all of Husker women's sports. Thanks for listening and watching.